in Srimad Bhagavatam, we notice that the assembly of Srila Sutta Goswami had thousands of sages. Quite extraordinary, because they didn't have a microphone. So how do you transmit to thousands of sages, because they are spread out over quite an expanse there. So how do you spread knowledge when there are thousands of people, when you don't have a microphone and they can't hear you from their auditory capacity?
Silence. Silence.
No, well, silence is not the quality, but then what is very important is for when the preacher who is effective, who is potent, who is connected, and he wants to share a message or she wants to share a message, they will have the ability to create a single mind of the entire audience. So they will create a single mind. And once they create a single mind, not hundreds, but a single mind which exists, then they have the capacity to be able to transmit a message which reaches everyone. That is the first point. So in creation of a single mind, the minds have to be properly situated as well before the mind creation begins. So if there's too much disruption, or if everybody is engaged in their own business, then it becomes very difficult for the preacher to create a single mind. Then when they create a single mind, it essentially means that they are creating and establishing a single need. You see, a single mind has a single need. So they are establishing a certain goal, and they are saying that this mind has a single need, and I'm going to address that need very specifically, and I'm going to target that need with specific verses, and so on and so forth. This is exactly how preaching gets done, and where it gets transmitted, and then people absorb it. And then you also find, in many cases, people come to the preacher and they say, Prabhu, it appeared as if you were talking to me. It appeared as if you were really addressing my issues. You see, the way it gets addressed is because there's a single mind that is created. So, yes, all those qualities of being silent and being attentive and understanding that Bhagavad Katha is being spoken, all of these are extraordinarily important, because when someone is offering siksha, it means Krishna is going to use them. If they have the capacity to inspire us, then it means Krishna is really using them. If they don't have the capacity to inspire us, they'll inspire someone or the other. Someone or the other gets inspired. But when inspiration occurs, understand that Krishna is using the speaker to inspire, because he has two means to attract. The first means to attract is through Guru, and the second means is through holy names. These are two means of Krishna to attraction. Akarshana, which is a part of Krishna's name, has two potencies. One is to attract through the holy names, that's where we are attracted to Kirtan, and the second is to attract through the means of Guru. Guru Mukha Padmavakya. So when the Guru speaks, then the transmission is heard, and then the chitta transforms itself. Guru Mukha Padmavakya, Chittete Kori Aikya. So basically there's a transformation that occurs in the heart because of the words and the vani of the speaker. So Krishna is using this person as a siksha, and he is trying to reach everybody and trying to inspire them. So this is one of the means. So in reality, that is why there is such emphasis on sharing, and there's also such emphasis on hearing, Shravanam. Yes, there's Kirtanam, there's Shravanam. One cannot engage in Kirtan unless one has engaged in Shravanam. If one does not hear, one cannot speak. Because ours is a process which is descending, it is not ascending. The ascending process, the process of trying to reach Krishna through our own efforts, is futile. It's futile at best because we don't have the ability to do so. We don't have the potency to do so. We don't have the time because the lifespan is so short. We have many inebrities. We call someone who is drunk inebriated. We are all drunk, intoxicated with the material world in certain ways, inefficient for most part in absorbing and being able to act upon instructions. Our faith is shallow, sometimes it is good and sometimes it is bad, and then the process which we follow, Krishna consciousness, is long haul. It is not a short process. We're talking about 40 years, we're talking about 50 years if your longevity is high. Child like her who begins very early has a long way to go, but that's the way it is. It's a long haul. So when you're talking about a long haul, then there is a need for many things to fall in place. So basically, the process of Krishna consciousness revolves around two platforms. One platform is the platform of effort, and the other platform is the platform of mercy. So now we will start the class, and we will talk a little bit about these two aspects, and we will understand it through tattva. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilatamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamakyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanjatam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyev Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikechendryatmane, Namah Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nibratatmane, Swarga Pavargadvarai Nityam Suchi Sade Namah Namah Hiranya Viryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. So we'll start with 4.9, because in that verse Krishna is very direct in terms of telling us how to reach him. This is Purushottam Mas, and Purushottam Mas essentially refers to Jagannath. It's straightforward because he is from Purushottam Kshetra. The highest expression of a deity form is the deity form of Jagannath. There is no higher deity form. Every other deity form is derived from Jagannath. Jagannath is the highest expression of Krishna. This is the highest expression which has been captured in the form of a deity. This is Krishna in his highest expression of love, and as a consequence, this is the highest deity form one can ever worship on this planet. So this month is quite auspicious, and Lord Jagannath is being served the Chappan Bhog. As a consequence, it is even more auspicious to be here. Yeah? How often do you get God who says he is hungry and he wants to eat? It's quite astonishing that he doesn't sleep. He sleeps for 3 hours in Jagannath Puri. The rest of the time he eats. So it's quite astonishing. Young child, yeah, teenager with a good appetite. So, okay. So text 4.9. Janma karma chame divyam evam vyattiti tatvatah tektva deha punarjanmam naiti mameti sa arjunah. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So basically, Krishna is saying that one has to understand him through tattva. Tattva, which is the word which is being used here, essentially refers to the absolute truth. Krishna says, understand me on the absolute platform. Do not absorb knowledge about me on a relative scale. Do not try and understand me, whom I am absolute. You have to approach me from an absolute platform. So what is an absolute platform for us to be able to understand Krishna? The absolute platform which is being established is Sadhu, Shastra, Guru. In fact, Shastra is Tattva. So one has to obtain Tattva Gyan, and Tattva Gyan in turn would be able to tell us about Krishna, and Krishna is giving us instructions in 4.9 saying, if you want to understand Leela, if you want to understand about me, which is essential because without understanding me, you can never come back. And if you understand my transcendental nature, you will surely come back. So who is to teach us transcendental nature? Who is to teach us what is transcendental and what is material? Who is to teach us what is relative and what is absolute? Krishna is saying, go to the absolute authority. The absolute authority is Shastra. We just go to Shastra. Shastra is absolute authority. The speaker of Shastra and the establishment of the rules and regulations of attaching and understanding Shastra is the Guru. And then the practitioner is the sadhu. So we understand by precept, we also understand by example. We understand by precept and we also understand by example. So you have Guru and you also have sadhu, the practitioner. We have to observe. If you don't observe the practitioner, we wouldn't be able to understand it. So Krishna says, understand me through tattva. Right? So what is interesting is that tattva in its purest form, tattva in its sublime form. In fact, Srila Prabhupada used to say, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, if all the books and all forms of literature in this world were to be completely destroyed, and Srimad Bhagavatam remains, that is all we need. Nothing else is required. If every other form of knowledge were to completely get destroyed, Srimad Bhagavatam remains, that is all that is required, because nothing else is required, because that is the Samam Bonam, that is Krishna himself. That is non-different. That is Tattva. But then, how do you understand Srimad Bhagavatam? Srimad Bhagavatam is best understood by a Gaura Priyajana. It is best understood by a devotee of Lord Chaitanya. This is very important to understand. Srimad Bhagavatam is connected to and understood by every Vaishnava Sampradaya. The Advaitins, the monists, they also comment and they also talk about Bhagavad Purana. But then we hold a premium above all because we are parts and parcels and connections to Lord Chaitanya in many different ways. Because we have connections to Lord Chaitanya, our understanding and our right to understand Srimad Bhagavatam is of a completely different nature. We understand Srimad Bhagavatam in the superlative sense. We can go to the full extent. Because we are connected to Lord Chaitanya, because we are connected to the parampara of Lord Chaitanya, we can understand it. Now, those of us who have to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, you have to follow the precepts of the Bhagavad Gita. There are very strict guidelines on what to do in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. You cannot approach Srimad Bhagavatam without understanding Bhagavad Gita and without following the precepts laid out by Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And when one understands Bhagavad Gita and then approaches Srimad Bhagavatam, then their goal should be established according to Bhagavad Gita. You can't really approach Bhagavatam without a goal which is established by Srimad Bhagavad Gita. When one approaches Srimad Bhagavatam with such a goal and understands Srimad Bhagavatam and becomes absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam and starts living Srimad Bhagavatam, then one can understand Chaitanya Charitamrita because the participants in Chaitanya Charitamrita are living Srimad Bhagavatam. These are sadhus who are living after understanding the goal of Bhagavad Gita. They've attained the goal, they have absorbed themselves in the Bhagavatam, and they are living Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, how amazing is Bhagavatam? We want to touch upon it briefly. How amazing is Bhagavatam? So this is Purushottam Mas. So Krishna is called Leela Purushottama. Lord Rama is called Maryada Purushottama. And what is Lord Gauranga called? Prema Purushottama. So Lord Gauranga is Prema Purushottama, Krishna is Leela Purushottama, and Lord Ram is Maryada Purushottama. So now Krishna says, understand me and understand my nature, understand my transcendental nature, you will come to me. Let's understand a little bit about how the evolution of desire within the heart of Krishna occurs according to Tattva. You see, the manifestation of Krishna's avatars have their root in desires. Krishna has desires. His desires are completely transcendental, and avatars occur according to those desires. It is said that when Krishna appeared as Narasimha avatar, he appeared in this most fierce form, and he was so fierce that he almost danced the dance of destruction like Lord Shiva. During the Mahapralaya, during the final dissolution of the entire creation, Lord Shiva dances the Tandava. That Tandava was the kind of Tandava which Lord Narasimhadev displayed. That was the level of anger, because he was Maharudra. He is the origin of Lord Shiva. So if Lord Shiva has anger, that comes from Narasimhadev's anger. So this display of enormous amount of anger, display of enormous amount of wrath was the display as Ugra Narasimha. This is the deity whom we worship in Sri Mayapur. That is why there's great care which is being given in terms of how you approach him. There are certain ways to approach him. There are certain people who can and certain people who can't worship. There can be disruption in life, literally. Now, this great personality of Lord Nrsimhadev, when he appears and tears asunder Hiranyakashipu, and he wants basically to establish Prahlad Maharaj, he completely uproots, changes the environment and establishes Prahlad Maharaj on the throne. But before that, there is great anger. That anger is almost not pacifiable. People look at that anger, they can't approach him. Lord Shiva can't. Nobody can approach him. Then they send Prahlad Maharaj. They say, go to him. You see? Go, because you are the only one who can pacify him. Nobody else can pacify him. You are his devotee. He has appeared for you. He is so special that the Lord appeared. This was Krishna, because Prahlad Maharaj was chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya in the Vasudeva form, and Krishna manifests himself as Narasimhadev. So this is Krishna. So he comes there, and then when he is in the Narasimha Rupa, because of the influence of Yogamaya, because of his own internal potency, he remembers himself as Narasimha, and he looks at Prahlad Maharaj. He picks up Prahlad Maharaj, places him on the lap, and he looks at him, and he says, he gives him blessings, he gives him all those, prayers, and all kinds of, benedictions are being given by Narasimhadev as Prahlad Narasimha. Have anyone of you visited Simhachalam in Germany? Yeah, that deity is truly amazing. If you get a chance, you should go, because he is Prahlad Narasimha, and you could literally see that he has these two manifestations. You see? He has two manifestations. One is that you can see he is very fierce, but you can also see this extraordinarily soft demeanor. He is holding Prahlad and he is just very soft-natured. Both can be seen in the deity when you're there. It's very amazing experience. Now, he has Prahlad Maharaj on his lap, and Prahlad Maharaj is looking upon Lord Nrsimhadev like a son would look upon the father, because the father's nature is to protect, in one sense. The father's duty is to protect, to provide for and protect. So Prahlad Maharaj, who just lost his father, takes the Lord as the father, literally, because the Lord has killed his father and assumed the form of the protector, and he makes him sit on his lap. While Prahlad Maharaj is sitting on the lap of Nrsimhadev, and Prahlad Maharaj is looking at Nrsimhadev, and Nrsimhadev is looking at Prahlad Maharaj, there's a bond and exchange of love which happens between them. And this bond is of Vatsalya Rupa. Vatsalya means I want to interact with the Lord as a parent. So the Lord understands that Prahlad Maharaj seems to be having more fun than I do. I'm not having as much fun because I'm always the supreme. He's looking at me, I'm the absolute truth. He is sitting and he is seeking protection. But he seems to be having even greater glory. What is it which is so astonishing about my devotee when I'm coming as the father, as the protector, as the benevolent, supreme Lord who is going to be removing all obstacles and helping him chant? So he is looking at him. So the desire comes in the heart of Nrsimhadev, it is said. The desire comes in the heart of Nrsimhadev that I want to experience being a son. I want to experience being a son. I want parents and I want to experience what it is to be a son, a proper son. So then Sri Rama avatar occurs. He appears as Lord Rama, Maryada Purushottama, where there's extraordinary diligence in terms of following the strictures given of the father. No one can understand the relationship between Lord Ram and his father. Chanters of Lord Ram's names, they develop that sense. If you chant the pure Ram mantra, there are many pure Ram mantras. There is Maha Mantra, but then there's also a pure Rama mantra. There are so many of them. Hanumanji chants a pure Rama mantra. So when you chant the Rama mantra, then one develops a sense of duty. One develops a sense of connections. One develops a sense of what is my place in the world and what is supposed to be done, what is not supposed to be done. All of these particular attributes start developing in the heart of one who is chanting Lord Ram's names. Because Lord Ram manifested himself as a son, the most dutiful son. Because he wanted to enjoy this connection and the desperation felt by his devotee of being a son. What is it to be a son? What is it to be cared for? What is it to be fed? And what is it to be performing the duty of a son? This desire appeared in the heart of Lord Nrsimhadev. He manifested himself as Lord Ram. That is the next avatar. This is the continuation. But during Ram avatar, there were so many strictures because he is Maryada Purushottam. There are so many strictures in terms of how he interacts, what he should do and what he cannot do. First of all, he appears as a king, an extraordinarily, duty-bound, extraordinarily strict king. So he has Lakshman as the brother. But then this relationship between Lakshman and Ram is not one of Sakya. It is Sakya mixed with Dasya. So there's great deal of a desire of Lakshman of wanting to serve as a servant. And the Lord looks upon him as that too. In certain ways, he's a son. It is said Mother Sita and Lord Ram used to look upon Lakshman as a son. That was the interaction. So there's a little bit of subordination. This is called Sambrama, where you are operating with the Lord still being kept in awe and reverence. The Lord is still in awe and reverence. There is still this Vishesha that the Lord is supreme, He is superior to me, I'm His servant, and you're operating at that level. So there is Sakya. There is this friendship which is associated with Lakshman, it is associated with Sugriv, it is associated with Vibhishana in Ramavatar, but they all have to maintain distance because you can't go close to Lord Ram simply because the Maryada has to be followed. It is very, very important in terms of how you interact with him. He was very strict in terms of how you interact with him. So the Lord develops a desire of wanting to experience Shuddha, pure love, completely free of all kinds of strictures, all kinds of boundaries, all kinds of rules and regulations. So he appears as a Lord in Vrindavan, Krishna. The Sakas put their feet on him. He puts their feet on them. Now the same Lakshman, he appears as Balaram in one sense. If you look at a sequence, he appears in the mood. Balaram is the origin, but it is also in terms of Tattva, Balaram is the origin. But in terms of Bhava, now there is a change. He appears, and then there is this particular connection which is going on between him and Krishna, where there is Vishramba, there is really no awe and reverence. There is really no change in terms of the God being superior, the Lord being superior, my being inferior. There's Vishramba, there's equality. So people put their arms around Krishna, Krishna grabs the food from their mouth and puts it in his mouth, they grab things from him, they scold him, they chastise him. You see, this can't be understood anywhere, this Leela. It cannot be understood, but this is the desire of the Lord to manifest this amazing potency and amazing Leela of wanting to interact with his devotees in Vrindavan. This is the highest, this is the summum bonum. There is really nothing beyond the interactions of the Lord in Vrindavan. Really nothing, because he experiences rasa, the idea of relationships, completely and fully in Vrindavan. There's nowhere else. That is the reason why Krishna is the avatari, he is the origin. But what we are talking about is that when the Lord appears in different forms, he develops desires. It can happen concurrently. He develops desires that, I can't interact with my devotee this way. I need to be closer. He develops his desires. So when Krishna appears and Krishna is interacting with his devotees in Braj, specifically with, Mother Radharani, Srimati Radharani, which is a very, very confidential aspect of his interaction. Very confidential. He is astonished. It is said that the internal reasons for the appearance of Lord Gauranga is that Krishna is astonished, is that how is it possible that someone could be so much in love with me? He can't understand it. This is the internal reason given by Srila Rupa Goswami in his writings that, no, I can't understand how Srimati Radharani has this much attraction for me. What is the beauty which the devotees in Vrindavan are so captured by? What is my beauty? Everybody is a narcissistic personality. Everybody spends time in front of the mirror. Everyone does, and they all think that we are handsome, we are beautiful. Everybody does it to some level. Some do it more than others. But Krishna couldn't understand. He said, I can't understand this. I cannot understand that what is my beauty that people are so transfixed. What is this particular quality of mine that people are so transfixed? He wanted to experience that. he wanted to experience this particular qualities of him, his devotees. He wanted to understand what is the nature of my devotees. So then the descent of Krishna occurs as Prema Purushottama Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So in Gaur Leela, he appears in the mood of Srimati Radharani in complete separation. So he has this extraordinary understanding of the extraordinary experience of his devotees in Gaur Leela. That particular extraordinary feelings which he goes through, because Srimati Radharani's feelings for Krishna are the highest, he goes through this intense feelings of Srimati Radharani. It is two people in one container, as Srila Gaur Govind Maharaj would say. It is two people in one container. There is Radha and Krishna in one Rupa, which is Gaurang Mahaprabhu. He experiences this extraordinary separation. He experiences his intense feelings of love, which Radharani feels for Krishna. And in that, he also understands our suffering. He understands the suffering of the jivas. He understands the suffering of the jivas because he experiences that intense suffering of not being able to serve Krishna and Braj, being away from Krishna and Braj in certain ways. Then he becomes Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate. Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate. The Krishna Prema is being spread. Do they even look for any qualification to give the highest benediction possible? No. So this particular transformation of Krishna's nature from one avatar to the other of wanting to experience rasa is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srimad Bhagavatam fits the exact definition of Shuddha Bhakti given by Srila Rupa Goswami, where it is Anyabhilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmari Anavritam, Anukuliyena Krishna Anushilinam Bhakti Uttama. Uttama Bhakti is spoken of in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's no other objective in Srimad Bhagavatam, so it is completely pure. There really isn't any other objective which is being described. So all these leelas are all encompassed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Then how do you understand these leelas? What exactly do you do for us to be able to approach these leelas, for us to be able to understand Srimad Bhagavatam? What is it which is to be done? First and foremost, there has to be sadhu sangha, because one hears and understands. There has to be Shravanam. Shravanam allows one to be deeply absorbed in the teachings of the Bhagavad. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from those who have understood Srimad Bhagavatam or who have complete faith in Srimad Bhagavatam is a must. In the lineage of Mahaprabhu, most important quality, if one is coming in the lineage of Mahaprabhu, they have special rights of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because he is Prema Purushottama and Srimad Bhagavatam is all about Shuddha Bhakti. It is all about Prema, 100%. So they have special rights. So they have the ability, because of coming in the parampara of Mahaprabhu, they have the ability of following Mahaprabhu's orders, of being able to chant. Then the holy names gives them the right to be able to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is our birthright. Trust me, this birthright of ours is extraordinary. This is our birthright in Gaur Leela. We are a part of Gauranga Mahaprabhu's plan. As a consequence, we have this very special benediction of being able to understand Srimad Bhagavatam in the lineage of Mahaprabhu. Understanding in the lineage of Mahaprabhu is very different from understanding it from others. It's very different. One cannot proceed beyond a certain level. With Mahaprabhu, you go all the way because the Acharyas have that authority. Because they have had experiences, they are Tattvagyanis, they have the ability to share Tattva with us. Okay? So let's look at the next instruction which is given in Bhagavad Gita. So one, we have to understand Leela. One, we have to understand the transcendental nature of the appearance and activities of Krishna. Second, we have to understand it from someone who is a Gaura Priyajana. He has to be, or she has to be, a Gaura Priyajana. It has to be someone who comes in the lineage of Mahaprabhu. It's extraordinary. It's very special. So, let's look at the next instruction. Which verse am I going to go to? Huh? Yeah, 4.34. Okay, so we first went to 4.9. Krishna says, understand me through Tattva. Then we want to understand how to understand Tattva. That is 4.34. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. I have said this several times. It is very, very, very critical for us to take the words of the Bhagavad Gita literally when Srila Prabhupada has written it. We do not need to interpret. See, the Tattva Jnani is one who has seen Tattva Akar. Srila Vyasadeva saw Shirodakashai Vishnu, he saw Garbhodakashai Vishnu, he saw Karvodakashai Vishnu lying in the causal ocean, he saw the universes entering into the pores, he saw the universes come out with the breath. He saw the manifestation of Leelas, and he recorded his experiences after vision. So he had Pratyaksha. His spiritual senses had Pratyaksha Praman. There was Praman, there was proof by his spiritual senses. He had a spiritual direct vision of all the occurrences. This is Pratyaksha, but it is the spiritual senses, he had direct proof. Because he had spiritual senses, he had direct proof, and he was able to visualize all the Leelas. He recorded those Leelas. So when those things become recorded, it becomes Praman, which is Shabda Praman, which is what we have in terms of the recording of the experience of Pratyaksha. His was Pratyaksha. He was able to visualize because it was direct experience. He was able to see. The recording was done in Shastra. This is Shabda. For us, this is proof. Why? Because the personality who wrote it had direct experiences. This is Tattva Gyan. He had direct experiences. Oh, this speaker. Careful. So he had direct experiences and he was recording it. This is very important for us to understand, devotees. Very important. Please do not, there is no need to extend the truth of what is written in Shastra. There isn't. It is recorded by Shastra. There isn't. See, we spoke earlier when Srila Sutta Goswami was speaking. He didn't have a mic and he didn't have speakers. He spoke to thousands of people assembled in Naimisharanya, and thousands of people assembled in Naimisharanya were able to absorb the teachings without a doubt, and they were able to record and they were able to teach their disciples. So the modern contraptions that we have now, that's our limitation. That's our limitation. But then, as long as we stick to Shabda Praman, as long as we stick to Praman, we stick to the Bhagavatam and to literature given by in our Parampara, we are okay. Okay? So, let's continue. Basically, what we are trying to say is that Srila Vyasadev's recording of Srimad Bhagavatam is through experiences. There are no doubts. There are no doubts at all. Similarly, Prema, which is the ultimate objective of Krishna consciousness, has also been recorded in terms of what the experiences ought to be. Those experiences are visualized in Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are derivative books which have been written by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They have been written and authored by Srila Rupa Goswami and the other Goswamis. All of this has been recorded because these are direct experiences. So for them, because their senses are completely spiritual, it is Pratyaksha, they have experienced spirituality, they've experienced and they've seen Krishna. And then they're writing those descriptions and saying that this is exactly what would happen if you were to follow their steps. So that is the reason why our process is scientific. As long as you're connected to the original source properly, our process is scientific because the Praman which comes is through direct experience of our Acharyas being passed on and then being recorded, and for us it is as good as it ever gets. You should have complete conviction when we are reading that this is possible because our Acharyas wrote it, because they experienced it. So it was not fiction, it was not a situation where there was a relative scale that maybe it is possible for someone, maybe it is not possible for someone. If Srila Prabhupada's movement can produce only Srila Prabhupada, which some of them claim as a pure devotee, then there is no need for a movement. Srila Prabhupada's process can produce millions and millions and millions of pure devotees if it is followed properly. Yeah? It is very important for us to know that that is the strictest idea, that if there is going to be only one pure devotee which is produced, which is Srila Prabhupada, and after which there is no scope, then the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam is distorted right at that point in time. The Bhagavad Gita is also distorted because that is not the Shastric conclusion. The scope is to drown the entire world in prema, which is the objective of Lord Chaitanya. This is the objective of Lord Nityananda, who assumes the form internally of Lakshman. Lord Chaitanya could never order Balram. Culturally, he cannot order Balram. But then when he shows Lord Nityananda the Shadbhuj Rupa, Lord Nityananda sees Ram's hands, and immediately, internally, he assumes the form of Lakshman. And then he becomes an order carrier, that I will take your orders, I will take your dust, I will do whatever is required, I will follow every strict order of yours. I will go and spread this mission. This particular desire of Lord Nityananda to spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya throughout is to drown this entire universe with prema. That is why Lord Chaitanya is prema Purushottama. But then where is prema described in the Bhagavad Gita? Our praman has to start from Bhagavad Gita. We have to understand Bhagavad Gita first. And we have to concretize and establish ourselves in scripture according to the Bhagavad Gita. This is very important. So where is it spoken of in the Bhagavad Gita? First, there has to be a spiritual master who comes in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaura Priyajana. Right? Then we have to approach him submissively. Then we receive Diksha. Faith is established in our hearts. His words enter through our ears and establish faith in our hearts. This faith grows when we follow his instructions day after day after day in our lives. When the chanting goes on a daily basis, these instructions are being followed. This is our connection. The connection to the Guru is through chanting. But then, do we have the power to chant? When the Diksha occurs, when the initiation occurs, and the beads are being given, the Guru has blessed the beads, he is handing the beads over to the disciple, he understands that there's a lack of power. There is a need for the mercy of Lord Nityananda to be given. So when he hands over the beads, he is giving the mercy of Lord Nityananda to the disciple, because he's representing Lord Nityananda. Lord Nityananda is Adi Guru, he is representing Lord Nityananda, and he's giving the beads to the disciple. Along with the beads, he says, these are my instructions. He says, chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, or more rounds, depending on who the Guru was in terms of time and space. Those days they had different standards. He is giving those beads. Along with the beads, he is giving power. When the disciple accepts the beads and gets attached to following the instructions of the Guru, the power which the Guru has vested in the instruction comes upon the disciple. Then this disciple becomes completely united with the instruction of the Guru, receives power. On the own, it's not possible. That is why this is the descending process. It has to descend. Mercy has to be received, it has to be captured, it has to be cultivated, watered. One has to understand that this is very special, it can't be lost. One has to have this mindset that they should be able to do anything and everything for this, because it is so special. So, the beads are given and the chanting begins. And along with the chanting, which is bhajana kriya, unwanted desires which are in the heart get completely eradicated. This is anartha nivritti. An entire lifetime can be spent in just removing unwanted desires. An entire lifetime. It is actually critical to know that we can spend lifetimes reaching the different stages which our acharyas have given. However, it is also critical to know that when the Guru is giving the beads, he has given us the ability, Srila Prabhupada has given us the ability to accomplish all that needs to be accomplished in one lifetime. Srila Prabhupada is not mincing his words. You see, when I first went to New Vrindavan, this was my first trip, several trips later, my Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, he was holding this big, seminar. He used to hold seminars in New Vrindavan. So there was a seminar where we would share realizations to our neighbor. See, whoever sits next to you, they will share, and then you will also be sharing. I had no realizations whatsoever, but I was fortunate to sit next to, I think, Mother Rukmini, Prabhupada disciple. I was next to her, or was I some other Mataji, but it was some very senior Prabhupada disciple. Someone who got initiated in 1968 or 69, those early days. So she was sharing realizations. She said those days they did not have email. So every communication that came along was very special from Prabhupada. And then you write a question to Prabhupada. People used to write entire letters of 3 pages. And then Srila Prabhupada used to reply after 2 months. Because it's a letter. It's, he used to be in Mumbai. He used to be in, Australia, Los Angeles, and it had to reach New York, wherever you were. And then there was no confidential exchanges between guru and disciple because the letters of Prabhupada were so rare because it used to come once in 2 months that everybody used to gather around just to read your letter. So there was no question of confidentiality. And then Srila Prabhupada's instructions. So this Mataji, this very senior Prabhupada disciple, who's very sincere, who's still very, very sincere, very inspiring, she basically had written and asked Srila Prabhupada, because those days she had asked Prabhupada as to what is it that I can do so that I can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So in many, many words, she had asked him that particular question. So he had a very short but very clear reply. He said, please chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regulative principles, and engage in service. You will go back. Then the question arises that we all know that that is not enough. In one sense, we all know that that is not enough. It can't produce that intensity. We all know that. It is not so much doubting Srila Prabhupada's words. It is more an understanding that if 16 rounds were enough, then why were devotees chanting 64? Why were they chanting 300,000 names? Why was the Namacharya sitting down and never moving, you see, and chanting? So, is this really enough? This question comes up in our hearts, that 16 rounds, is it really enough? You see, the beauty is it is not enough. But fortunately, we are not dependent on that. We are dependent on following Srila Prabhupada's instruction, and he would compensate. He will compensate. So if we sincerely follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions, then he lends a hand. There were early devotees who read in the scripture. They read that one has to establish religiosity before they can take up devotional service or go further. They read, one has to understand dharma, and one understands dharma, which is the normal, yama, niyama, and all the different steps one has to understand. And one, if understands dharma, then they will have the ability to understand paradharma. They'll be able to engage in something superior. So they went and approached Srila Prabhupada. They said, Srila Prabhupada, we come from backgrounds where we don't even know what is dharma. We don't even know what is dharma. Even if you're Indian born, we don't know what is dharma. So we should never have this false pride that we know what is dharma. We don't. In reality, they went and approached Srila Prabhupada. They were quite innocent, straightforward, simple devotees. They approached Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, it is being written here that one has to establish themselves in proper activity for them to be able to make progress in spiritual world and make progress in spiritual path. But we don't have anything. We don't have a background. We don't even know what to do and what not to do. We don't have a religion. We just do not have the so-called dharma, which is religion, regulum in religion. We don't have that crucible of support. Indians are considered fortunate because they come from the crucible of support. They have that samskara. But if you're not, then you don't have it. Srila Prabhupada looked at them and he said, I will give you religiosity. You see, if whatever you don't have, I'm going to provide. This was Srila Prabhupada's mood. So the point we are trying to make is that it is not so much dependent on us, but what we are doing is never going to be adequate for the results. Please understand that the fruits of Mahaprabhu's movements are prema. The fruits are being able to experience the supreme goal of every spiritualist imaginable. So this is not something which can be had by our effort. A tremendous amount of compensation has been done if we put in the effort. So there is mercy. So there is this embankment of where you're walking with effort, and then there is mercy on both sides. One has to understand that both are required. Then one has to understand also that the mercy of the Guru is such that he is compensating. He is literally compensating. He is literally compensating for the lack in the disciple, the inability of the disciple. He is compensating. They are lifting, which is an extraordinary, extraordinary debt which one owes to the spiritual master, because they are compensating and giving us what we don't have. And without that gift, we don't have the ability to make any kind of progress. The protection is from the Guru. We don't have any kind of progress available without that protection. Very important to know. Now, once that is established, the connection between the disciple and the guru is established, the guru has the ability to apply the ointment of prema onto the disciple's eyes. The guru has the ability to do so. Srila Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj, a Prabhupada disciple, he is called the Gaura Acharya. In our movement, after Prabhupada, he is the personality who is the authority in Gaur Leela. So basically, he used to say the guru has keys to the ointment factory. He manufactures that ointment. The ointment of prema is being manufactured by the guru. He has the ability to apply this ointment onto our eyes. So I want to just share a short story of what this ointment is all about. Not from our parampara, but it is quite telling, it is quite exemplary. So there was this particular very rich merchant. He was a very rich merchant, very wealthy in Srirangam, in South India. And he was wealthy, but he was also extraordinarily attached to his wife. He had a wife. The description given is that she was extraordinarily beautiful. And beauty is also in the eye of the beholder. We don't know how beautiful, but then he thought she was super beautiful. And he was completely enamored, infatuated by her beauty. To such an extent that this is 10th century Srirangam. When he is walking on the road during midday, he would be so scared that the sun would intensely hurt her skin and her complexion that he would hold an umbrella and ensure that the sunlight doesn't come upon her, and so on and so forth, midday. And this kind of behavior of open display was very frowned upon. You do it today, it will still be frowned upon. It's a different story. In some parts of South India, it's frowned upon. Because you can't have this open display of affection. You can't do it. It's not the West. So he used to show this extraordinary affection, infatuation, because it was considered to be a sign of weakness, which it is, to be honest. It is. So he used to display this quite shamelessly. Srila Ramanujacharya, the great Acharya, the Vaishnava Acharya of the Sri Sampradaya, and we have a very close connection with them in terms of all aspects of worship, in terms of the Siddhanta philosophy as well. Srila Ramanujacharya was passing to the river Kaveri to have a bath during the same time. So he saw this personality with his wife walking on the streets of Srirangam, completely enamored, completely mindless, completely unmindful of the surroundings, and showing affection to her. And he was quite amazed. He saw that this was a wonderful quality. That if he can ignore the whole world and become so absorbed, he has the ability to get absorbed. Which, his senses have the ability to get absorbed, and he will understand that. You see, he will understand absorption. My spiritual master, Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, used to say that you are very fortunate if you have fallen in love because you will understand many things. He used to say that. He used to sannyasi, but he used to make that statement because it's a fact. Because this mindless madness which a person goes through, it is madness. It is material madness. Underline it. It is material madness. There's a big distinction. But this material madness exposes the ability of the individual to show absorption. The ability of the individual to completely disregard the world. The ability of the individual to lose sleep, lose their necessity to eat. All those things go away. This shows that the person's senses can be directed with such focus. So Ramanujacharya was quite enthralled. He said, this person needs a kick, but then it has to be given because this guy has such scope. So he called him over. He said, what is it that you see in your wife's face which enthralls you so much that you're completely unmindful of societal concerns? There was a very straightforward question from the Acharya. What is it that you see? So he didn't hesitate because he was a straightforward person. He did not hesitate. He said, her eyes are so beautiful that I can't really take my eyes off her face. So Srila Ramanujacharya said, okay. He said, if I show you eyes that are even more beautiful, are you willing to become completely absorbed and give up everything for that? He was sincere. You see, the sincere person said yes. So Sri Ramanujacharya took him to the altar, to the sanctum of the Srirangam temple. And by the potency of the presence of Sri Ramanujacharya, he was a very potent personality. He was an expansion, it is recorded in Sri Sampradaya, of Lord Ananta. Basically, so as a consequence, he carried the potency in him of being able to do certain things which were just amazing. He could do things. So he had this personality next to him. He took him to Lord Ranganatha in Sri Rangam. And then he told him, take a look at the Lord. But he presented the personality with spiritual eyes. Srila Ramanujacharya, for a brief moment, presented him with spiritual eyes. This is quite possible. There were many Prabhupada disciples who used to experience extraordinary phenomenon with Srila Prabhupada. When they travel with Srila Prabhupada, when they are around Srila Prabhupada, that potency used to come out. And they used to have spiritual experiences based on his potency. It is not because they had attained the standard. It is because Srila Prabhupada's presence was so potent, it used to overflow and they used to have benefits. So in a similar manner, he empowered this devotee to have vision. In this vision, he saw Lord Ranganatha in the original form. For a few brief moments, this gift was given where he could see this. So the prema, the ointment of prema, was put on his eyes for a brief moment by the desire of the Guru. The Guru's chitta, his heart is such, and his desire is such, open the eyes of my disciple. You see, this is very, very important, which is exactly how it works, is that we are dependent. The Guru desires my disciple has to make progress. Open the eyes of my disciple, and the disciple's eyes open up. They have the ability to see. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate giram. Yatkripa tamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. So basically, with just the blessings of Shri Guru, one has the ability to visualize things which they are not qualified to visualize. Lord Nityananda, when he used to walk on the banks of Nadia, when he used to walk in Mayapur, when he used to walk in the outskirts and the places in Bengal, as he used to walk, because of his presence and because of he is carrying this entire treasure house of prema on his, within his heart. That prema used to spout forward and distribute itself to the surroundings, and people used to go mad. This Unmata, they used to experience madness by the presence of Lord Nityananda. It was not because they were qualified in terms of sadhakas. It was just the presence. That is the power of Guru Tattva. The Guru Tattva is so powerful, it has the ability to give us things which we don't qualify for. And that is what Sri Ramanujacharya did. He gave him a vision. That devotee became one of the most prominent disciples of Sri Ramanujacharya, where he gave up his entire wealth. He was very wealthy. He gave up his entire wealth, and they were so sincere, both the husband and wife. Even though they were simple-minded and they were exchanging these affections, they were much more superior within their heart compared to some of the other disciples of Ramanujacharya in terms of their sincerity. So they became one of the most prominent disciples of Sri Ramanujacharya because they received the mercy. So the point we are trying to make is this Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. This prema is being given as an ointment, and this salve of ointment, prema, is being applied to our eyes. Yeah? In Jagannath Puri they do that. They put camphor. That doesn't work as good, but it works. Depends on who you are, but it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But anyways, the point is that the ointment of camphor is held by the Guru. The desire of the Guru, basically, to open the eyes of the disciple is such that they have the ability to visualize and see the Lord in all His glory within this lifetime. So where does Krishna say this? He gives two stages. He says this in 4.39, and then he also says this in, he gives a very special verse again, two special verses. There's some distinction in these verses I just want to point out, and then we'll try and summarize and we'll end. Okay, one moment. Yes, this is the last verse of 9th chapter, the opulences of the Absolute. Here Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 9th chapter, is basically projecting the opulences of the Absolute. In other words, these are basically the what I would call it as the awe-inspiring aspects of who he was, the awe-inspiring aspects of who he was. So the last instruction given in 9.34, which is this chapter, is Man mana bhava mat bhakto, matyaji mam namaskuru, Mame me shasi yuktaivam atmana matparayanaha. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. There's something missing here, and we'll go to it. In 9.34, he is giving Arjun general instructions. This is confidential, but it's general. This is confidential, but it's general. What is missing here is rasa. These are general instructions. You will come to me. So one has to approach Krishna, engage in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, as instructed by the Guru, force themselves to wake up in the morning, follow the strictures of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, like for instance the fasting in the month of Purushottam Mas. There can be fasting on Ekadasi, fasting on Janmashtami, fasting during Chaturmas. These are following the orders of the Guru, trying to follow Vidhi. The deity is being worshipped very strictly according to the principles given in the Pancharatra. This is Vidhi. Okay? This is Vidhi. But then, this is described here in 9.24 that you will understand my nature. Krishna says, please worship me. Please pay homage unto me. But then, even more confidential instructions are being given in the 18th chapter. The same verse takes a little bit of a turn in the 18th chapter. 18:65. Now, please listen carefully. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vashyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me. Offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are a very dear friend. Now he is experiencing rasa. The first one was general instruction. The second one is you establish this rasa, and this is practically nothing else you need to do. This is very confidential. You see? This rasa is very confidential. Now, the beauty is in Mahaprabhu's movement, when we are given the beads and when we are chanting, the holy names have everything within them. They can take us to the entire process of Bhajana Kriya, Sadhu Sangha, right? Then you have Bhajana Kriya, then you have Anartha Nivritti, and then you have Nishta, then you have Ruchi, then you have Ashakti, Bhava, then it is Prema. This entire different aspects of attaining Prema is all contained within the simple instruction and the straightforward instruction of Sri Guru of chanting the holy names. Nothing else is required. Everything else is contained within that. You see? So when one chants the holy names contain information as to Krishna's specific relationship with us. This becomes revealed at the stage of Nishta. There is Guru Nishta. When one is very sincerely serving Guru, then this becomes revealed at the stage of Nishta. When anarthas are gone, when one is chanting Namabhas, offenseless chanting, one is slowly, steadily reaching the liberated platform. Right? At that point in time, the relationship with Krishna becomes unfolded. It starts unfolding within our hearts. It's contained within the holy names. There really isn't anything that one needs to do. There really isn't anything one needs to do other than chant. Because there can be distractions that can come on our way when people think that there have to be other things that have to be done. The greatest realization that one can have, I say this very humbly, if you have seriously, sincerely been chanting, the greatest realization one will have is the fact that the instructions given by Srila Prabhupada is all they need. This realization that whatever has been given by him of chanting very sincerely, following the regs, whatever he has given, this is all I need. This realization takes a long time. People try all kinds of things. They think that they have to do all kinds of things. They want to fix their life before they come back to the spiritual life. They want to fix this, fix that. The realization that all we have to do is just follow Srila Prabhupada's instruction, and the fact that everything is contained within those instructions, this takes a long time. When that realization comes, one becomes steady. One becomes very steady. Understands that, okay, whatever is being given by the Guru, this is all I need. I'm just going to follow it with all my heart, and this is all I need. This is all I need. Nothing else is required. Then it starts unfolding. The unfolding of our relationship starts within our heart with Krishna, the blossoming. So, we go from 9.34 all the way to 18.65, where this establishment of rasa takes place, where he says, now this is confidential, Arjun, because you are my friend, you will come to me. Don't worry, establish that relationship. If you don't establish that relationship, then you may not. You might reach other planetary, you might reach other Vaikuntha planets, you could be connected to others, but if you develop a rasa with me, you will come to me. Krishna's instructions are very clear. This is rasa. So what happens here is that the holy names, when we sincerely follow them, they have the ability to unfold our identity. Our identity is revealed. There's a personality in the spiritual sky who begins guiding us. Just as much as we became completely enamored and we gave up every other form of authority in our lives when we came in touch with our spiritual master, it's an experience which every disciple goes through. That connection with the spiritual master is so intense that you basically get overwhelmed with the love which they put on you, that everything else becomes very minuscule, it becomes minimized. You don't really feel anything else. And Krishna can also become secondary when the spiritual master comes into one's life to some cases. You become so attached to the spiritual master that you see everything in him and you want to serve him. You see? Because he becomes all-encompassing. He takes over your life, literally. And there is nothing wrong, because this is Krishna who is attracting us through Guru. Krishna is attracting us through him, so there's really nothing wrong. So you accept that particular mood of servitude and surrender with all our hearts, wanting to give everything. My spiritual master, Srila Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, he gave a class in New Vrindavan. He said, he got incarcerated distributing books behind the Iron Curtain. Distributing books. Okay? He was serving Srila Prabhupada directly. He got incarcerated. He escaped. This was one of the communist countries. People used to throw stones at him because he was black. People used to throw stones at him. When he went to Russia or one of the Iron Curtain countries, they had never seen a black man before. So, people used to have accidents in traffic signals. Literally. They used to have accidents because they had never seen a black man, and they used to just drive the car in, ram the car in. Children used to throw stones at him. You see, when he went first to Africa, he did not have a place to stay. He used to sleep on the footsteps of the Hindu temple every night. And he used to eat the raw vegetables that were discarded in the market because he didn't have money to eat food. He used to wash those raw vegetables and he used to eat and he used to preach. They never used to allow him in the Hindu temple because he was black. Right? The Christians used to think that he is not ours because he's wearing saffron. So Krishna gave the perfect arrangement. He had to be on the steps. He didn't want him to associate with the karmis, and he didn't want him to associate with even others. So he was always on the steps depending on Krishna. The point we are trying to make is, he made a very powerful statement which stuck to me. He gave a class along with Srila Radhanath Swami years back in New Vrindavan. He said, I would not do what I did for Srila Prabhupada if someone were to pay me $1 million every month. It's true. So why did devotees do what they did? They went crazy for Srila Prabhupada. And he explained it. Srila Prabhupada took this big dollop of love, like this big blob, as you call it, and then he put this on the devotee. They used to experience this love of the spiritual master so much that they did things for him which they would never do, perhaps even for people whom were very close to them from the material perspective. So this is the truth of the relationship with Krishna. This is Krishna attracting. In a similar fashion, when one gets fixed in their identity, or the identity begins unfolding in the heart as to who they are, a personality from the spiritual sky begins guiding them, because they see that this fellow is so wretched, he is chanting, he is doing this, he is doing that, he is so wretched, I need to help him, I need to hold on to his hand, I can help him. So this particular attachment develops with a personality in the spiritual sky. That personality can overshadow the divine couple, like the Guru. You see? This is from scripture. This is from scripture. there is Ragavartino Chandika, there are so many different scriptures which have been written by our acharyas who are rasikas. This is Lord Chaitanya's offering. You can't find the confidential information in anywhere else. It is just because of Lord Chaitanya's mercy that we can come in touch with this. So they take over. Then the devotee has the ability to give up, and everything else in the world becomes imperceptible. The so-called pleasure, the so-called fame, infamy, good name, bad name, good health, bad health. Prema can come with good health, prema can come with bad health, prema can come in poverty, can come with wealth. They become completely unmindful because they have received the gift of all lifetimes, the samam bona. This is the goal. Very important to know that if you're searching for a goal which is worth pursuing and which is completely something which you can give up everything for, if you find such a goal, one is very fortunate. And if you do find such a goal and you have someone guiding you with that goal, then please do ensure that all stops are removed. There is really no need to have any kind of aspiration to come back to this world. One should operate with the desire that I have received what I need and I'm ready to go through whatever you want me to go through, because the gift that you're going to give me is worth it. This particular aspiration has to be there. Krishna is talking about it. Manmanava madbhakto madhyajivam namaskuru. This is love. Only when one is in love can one think about someone constantly. This is prema. How else can you talk about Krishna constantly? Can anyone do it constantly? You can't unless you're in love. You can't. Right? So the more and more we engage in the mission of Lord Chaitanya, then one has the ability to move forward because Lord Chaitanya's mercy is going to compensate. It's very simple. Our acharyas have not given us anything more. They have given us a very simple instruction of just holding on to our bead bags. Hold on to your bead bags and chant sincerely, because everything else is going to follow. The holy names have everything within them. Nama naminoho abhinnatvam. There really isn't any difference. There really no difference, so everything is contained, it starts unfolding, and then we make progress year by year. And you have to calibrate. If you don't calibrate your progress, if our problems in engaging in sadhana bhakti this year are the same as it was last year, then we are doing what we did last year. So if you do what you did last year, then why would your boss promote you? It's logical. If you do what you did last year, why should you get promoted? So the experience is going to be the same. Experience is going to be the same. So we need to calibrate. We need to become restless. We need to ask for mercy. I just want to end with this. One day I had the good fortune of being in Gitanagari when my spiritual master was there, Srila Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, and he came out of the woods. He used to wear this orange, I would say jumpers, coveralls, whatever you call them. He used to go cycling. He used to profusely sweat. And I remember that. He just walked out of the woods with a diary in his hand. And then I asked him, what were you doing, Guru Maharaj? Where did you come from? Because at that point in time, he just came and he told me, no, I sit in the woods. He said, these woods in Gitanagari, they have a lot of presence. They have a lot of divine presence. So these woods are very alive. They have a lot of divine presence. I go into these woods and then I cry for help. And when I cry for help, then realizations come. And those realizations are what I record. So he practically used to go into the woods to cry out. When this crying became recorded in his diaries, one of my god sisters captured all those diaries and printed them as a gift for Vyas Puja. That became the Beggar series. So the Beggar series was not intentional. It was practically his realizations which he captured, and they became the Beggar series, where he was literally begging for prema. He was begging for mercy. You see? So this was very special. The point which I'm trying to make here is that we have a goal which is superlative. This is a goal which supersedes and overwhelms every other little aspect of our little lives. Many, many lifetimes on this planet, we have been economically successful. There have been many lifetimes when we have had power. There have been many lifetimes when we've had very healthy, good-looking bodies. There have been many, many lifetimes when we have had extraordinary control over the affairs of our life. So these are ordinary experiences that have already happened, and they've happened ad nauseum. They've happened so many times. These are not aspirations with a worth aspiring for. They don't carry the quality of aspiration. They don't. They don't. Doesn't matter what we think we are. It really doesn't matter, because we have had all of this in so many different relationships. So if we have a problem in this lifetime, that someone has economic problems, one has to understand that yes, I've had a very good time in the past, and this lifetime I'm struggling, so be it. Grab the beads and we chant. Someone has bad health, understand that this is a part of the Mahat Tattva. We have had good times in the past and there's bad times. This basically, the point we are trying to make is that you can't solve all your problems in this planet. This planet is a planet which is supposed to give problems. It is designed to fail. Our bodies are designed to destruct, and it is supposed to have problems. This is the nature of this planet. This nature of the planet is to frustrate us. We can't solve it. Many a time, we have this particular idea that our spiritual lives would be better if we solve our material problems. So we focus and put intense energy on resolving the material problems, and we hang the bead bag on the wall in the nail which is there. We do. Now, I'm not minimizing anyone's life. I'm not minimizing the struggles of devotees. I talk to devotees from around the world every week. Trust me, I've seen every kind of problem and every kind of challenge which devotees face. I'm fully aware. So I'm not minimizing it, I empathize. But all I'm trying to say is, you need to have a plan to solve your problems. The solution for solving your problems cannot start with the problems themselves. The solution and the power to solve for a devotee, it rests in their ability to chant. It rests in their ability to connect with the Guru. It rests in their ability to connect with Srila Prabhupada. The more and more and more we study our spiritual life, the greater would be the power to resolve our material issues. The power to resolve material issues are going to come from spiritual life. Material issues and material life does not have the power to give us spirituality. It doesn't. You can't really go and fix something which you don't have the ability to do so. You don't have the ability to do so. Please, you have been recruited by Lord Chaitanya. You don't have the ability to go and fix your material problems without fixing your spiritual life. Fix your spiritual life, because that recruitment has already happened. That's where real power is. When you want to fix your spiritual life, and when you want to chant, and when you want to serve, and so on and so forth, the other problems would get resolved easily. This is our technique. This is Trinadapi Sunicena. Trinadapi Sunicena is to accept one's environment. You have to accept the environment, you have to accept the challenges of the present as given and as given by Krishna. At any given time, Krishna knows what we are going through, and he has created this environment, or the environment has been created by our karma. So we accept it first. Okay, Krishna, you want me to be in this environment. Accept it. And then you also have to act upon that environment. So it doesn't mean there is inaction. We don't sit and say we are going to chant and everything else is going to get taken care of. We are going to fix ourselves in fixing the chanting part nicely, and then we are going to fix aspects of what needs to be fixed. It cannot happen at the cost of chanting. So Trinadapi Sunicena is to accept the environment and act upon the environment with courage. This is Trinadapi Sunicena. Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, did not show the demeanor of a humble soul. He is a Kshatriya, he was an emperor, he was a king. As Kshatriya nature is to dominate. But that is the humility in Arjuna's behavior. The humility is in being able to accept the environment given by Krishna, accepting the arrangement of Krishna, and then acting upon it with courage, with all the skills that he had. So we have been given skills, we have been given intelligence. We have to act upon our life, there's no doubt. But please understand, the power to change things in our life rests with our spiritual life. It does not rest independently with the material side. It doesn't. We can solve nothing on the material plane. You can solve everything because you have power, because you're chanting. Because you want to chant sincerely, and because you want to associate, you want to hear Bhagavatam sincerely, then that power has the capacity to give a very peaceful surrounding. That is how you resolve life. You resolve life from inside out. You don't resolve things outside and then resolve things inside. You start here first and then it goes out. So this is what is required. So this Manmarava Madbhakto, which Krishna is talking about, is about building confidential relationships, and all of that is contained within the holy names. So all the instructions for the holy names have been given and the mercy has been given. Our job is to put in the effort. All we have to do is just be able to chant. Just be able to chant properly. Everything else is just going to fall in place because of it. Potency lies in the power of chanting. If there's anything work to be done, it has got to do with chanting the holy names. I'll stop right here and then we'll take questions or a couple of comments if you have, and then we'll break. Yes, Prabhu.
Ravi, the question was, your first comment said like the speaker tries to create one mind and that's how you communicate. My question was, so the listeners who are there sitting far back who cannot hear him audibly, so how do they really understand what he's saying? I'm just trying to understand the whole dynamic.
Okay, so I was talking about when someone comes to preach, they are representing the parampara. If they're sincere and if they're following the instructions of their guru, they're connected to the spiritual master, they develop the ability to get power from the parampara. That's a fact. So when they speak, they have the ability, because of their internal desire to preach, they have the ability to create a single mind. They have the ability to create a single mind. It does not matter as to whether someone can listen or doesn't listen. There's the ability to create a single mind. That is the first point I want to make. Internally, the desire to preach is such. Srila Prabhupada used to make this statement. In the early days, his accent was so thick that people couldn't understand it. But then, yet they transformed their lives. Why did they transform their lives but they can't understand his instructions? It was because he was literally talking to them inside, the soul. He was preaching, he was talking to that, and that had the ability to empower them to change. Transformations start occurring. So whoever is empowered has the ability. This is a fact, this is how they preach. You create a single mind. The idea of wanting to create a single mind will come to them when they meditate on the Guru's lotus feet. When they offer prayers, they have the ability to step aside so that the parampara can use them as an instrument. And when the parampara starts using them as an instrument, they have the ability to create a single mind. Now, I will clarify the second point which you made. Srila Sutta Goswami was able to communicate to the vast audience because there was very high Guru Tattva in him. When someone has very high Guru Tattva in them, this is Akash Tattva. Their sound has the ability to penetrate all other material layers and reach into the ears. This is a fact. This is how Krishna initiates Lord Brahma. Before Lord Brahma begins creation, Krishna doesn't have to physically go and initiate Lord Brahma. Krishna has to desire to pass on the Gayatri to Lord Brahma. How does Lord Brahma hear? Because there is such high Akash Tattva, and the desire of Krishna can penetrate, the sound energy can penetrate and reach the ears. So that is the reason why when we worship Guru Srila Prabhupada in the mornings, then we develop a higher level of Akash Tattva. It allows us to hear, it allows us to read. Because the transmission, this is transcendentally alive. It's not matter. So the transmission from scripture reaches into our hearts because now our Akash Tattva is higher, because it allows us to hear. And when I use the word hear, I'm not talking about physically hearing. I'm talking about having the ability to hear instructions within the heart. We talk about realizations. What is a realization? You read scripture and you go through an experience, a realization occurs. A realization is nothing but the ability to transform scripture and be able to reach a level where you can receive wisdom from that. There is Gyan and then there is Vigyan. So this Vigyan is realization. The transformation of Gyan to Vigyan, that power comes higher and higher when one has the blessings of Sri Guru. The more one is dedicated, then the more one gets the power to preach and power to do things, because the Guru is blessing them. As a consequence, the ability to transform goes higher and higher and higher. Realizations come. It's also the truth that when we are trying to share, we receive realizations. So that's why it's perfect to say that it is self-purifying when you want to speak. Because when we are trying to speak, depending on the sincerity of the audience, we receive realizations that we can share. Krishna gives us and then we share. Yeah? So that's how it works. Sure. Yes?
I want to understand how do we calibrate, like if you can give example of calibration.
Calibration has to be done at a physical level. Meaning, if our capacity, you can calibrate yourself in terms of quality. Right? So when do I wake up? How consistent am I with my reading process? How consistent and how desirous I am of constantly wanting to move forward with reading. So you can calibrate at multiple levels. Yeah, writing down and wanting to constantly monitor it and move forward, that's the only way to make improvements. You cannot make improvements by wishful thinking. No one can. It has to be written down. It has to have a process to follow where we see that this year was this and then the subsequent year is going to be this. How do we measure success in Krishna consciousness? It's very important to know how to measure. Because everybody can have their own relative standard, but it can be known to us. If we develop a deep desire to chant and more, if we develop a deep desire to associate, if we develop a deep desire to hear, if we develop a deep desire to read more and more of Srimad Bhagavatam on a daily basis, understand that progress is being made. When we have no interest whatsoever in coming in touch with Krishna consciousness, even though we have been given so many instructions, this is the 10th offense of committing and getting connected to material energy, even though we have had so many instructions in the part. This is the 10th offense, Namaprad. Why does the 10th offense occur? It's because the first offense has occurred. Vaishnava Prad has occurred, then philosophical confusion begins, the Guru is doubted, then it's a straightforward bottom drop. There really isn't anything. Then one person, they have to again start. Then they develop material desires. You might notice that you like things which you used to like before you came into Krishna consciousness. So I dig this. I used to like it. I'm still liking this. Then that is an issue. That is an issue. You can clearly see if taste has changed. So if you're able to chant, if we're able to associate, if our reading habits improve, and we're able to absorb and get thrilled and become very happy when we read a page. See, there's a special thrill when you receive gifts from Shastra. You become excited, saying, wow, this is so exciting. When this happens, then you know that you are slowly, steadily making progress because mercy is being given. And you also know when mercy is being taken away because of offenses. But calibration should always be physical. It should be observed. How many rounds am I chanting? Am I consistent with timing? Am I being able to read? Am I being able to do this? That's better to measure that way, as opposed to thinking that we are advancing, because that's a subtle change. It's very dangerous to calibrate oneself internally. Dangerous. One last thing to your question. Even at the highest level, our acharyas, for example, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has written in Sri Radha Kundashtakam, where the last verse he has given a falashruti. This falashruti he has given that whoever reads this word, Danakela Nivartana Kunda, the particular pastime of Krishna, engaging in basically demanding taxes from Srimati Radharani and the other cowherd girls for passing by, and he becomes a taxman, tax collector. He has written Sri Raghunath Das Goswami as a falashruti in that particular verse, where he says very clearly that one who has no other desires other than wanting to chant the holy names on the banks of Sri Radha Kund, then such a person will have a direct vision of these amazing pastimes. So, how do we understand whether we have progressed to that level? It's very simple. If we have progressed to that level, then we should experience the falashruti of our acharyas. Not concoctions that we are seeing Krishna, not concoctions that we are seeing Srimati Radharani. It's not recorded in scripture, it is not there. Maybe there are pastimes which are coming into our mind. Sometimes some devotees, they share with me in confidence that, Prabhu, I see this, how do I interpret this? And then I can understand that they need to basically understand that this is quite dangerous to assume that we are advanced when we can't really go through the experiences given by our acharyas. When we go through the experiences given by our acharyas, and when that particular situation occurs in the heart that I have no other desire but to stay on the banks of Sri Radha Kund and chant the holy names, then the pastimes are revealed, then one understands that they have reached what the acharyas want to gift us. This is the reason why the acharyas themselves have recorded their experiences, to give us some calibration. This is at the highest level. Even the highest level requires calibration. You cannot make assumptions. You have to go to scripture. You have to see if it is recorded in scripture. If it is not recorded in scripture, note down in a diary. Maybe you will find scriptural reference at some point because scripture itself is so vast. Yeah? So it requires work. Anything else? So I think we created a single mind and we put everybody to sleep. Good. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.